Methylene Blue, is it the magic bullet everybody talks about, or is this just another crazy trend? Welcome to Truth or Trend. This is where Dr. Vrzal and I answer the questions of so many people coming to us saying all of these people online are using this new thing or talking about this thing, and they want to know what we think because we are going to take a look at it from our clinical experience. We're going to take a dive into the research, summarize that for you, and we're not selling anything. We are not sponsored by any of these people. We're only selling the truth today.
Truth.
As I was doing my research on methylene blue, I spent a lot of time listening to hours of medical doctors who have a lot of experience on it and what they're doing with it and why they're doing it. And I was just telling Dr. V before we started that my conclusion is, I'm going to cut to the end here, but we're going to go deeper into it.
Stay tuned.
One of these doctors who created a product with it because he thinks it's so wonderful and he uses it himself all the time, at the end says, if you are taking methylene blue, it is because you are compensating for something. And that's what we're here to do, is to help you figure out what you're compensating for and how can you do that within natural means. Okay.
Right.
So
right.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, before we start, we probably need to clear the air. We're talking about methylene blue, and your tongue's looking a little blue. What do you got going on there?
I tried one this morning because I said I'll never do anything or talk about anything unless I have a little experience with it. And did all the research. The tiniest doses seem to be the safest. So I'm like, let's give it a shot. Let's try it. Yeah, and that is going to be one of the things that happen right there.
There you go. Trust your moderator there. He's
sacrificing himself. So
yeah, methylene blue might work for your fish tank. Other considerate, here we go, letting the cat out of the bag again already. So some of the proclaimed benefits of methylene blue, we've got cognitive enhancement and neuroprotection. Let me get to this part on my mitochondrial support and anti-aging. Each of these are things that we may talk about as we go through this truth or trend discussion about methylene blue. We've got methemoglobulinemia treatment, which basically means helping your hemoglobin carry oxygen. We've got antimicrobial, antiviral therapy. We can spend some time on that. And then certainly between Dustin and I, this is a favorite subject of ours, but mood and psychiatric disorders, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorders, and it's proclaimed as an MAO inhibitor. So we both teach 12-hour seminars on these things. In fact, during COVID, I taught an 8-hour seminar on neurotransmitters to the computer, virtual, one of the most challenging teaching events I'd ever done. But just to mention how much you and I can converse, and this is really where this podcast started, when we started conversing about different ways to modulate brain chemistry, right? And then the sixth proclaimed benefit is sepsis and inflammation, so which includes nitric oxide production. So some big proclaimed benefits and things that we can talk about. Each of these has value potentially. So I would say in the comments and as we go through it, I would say, what are you looking to benefit, or how are you looking to benefit from this product, so that then we will know, or you'll have to stay tuned to that portion of today's podcast where we get into whether you're looking to use this like you would for a fish tank for sepsis and inflammation, or are you using it to balance your mood because your husband says you're crazy, So let's dig into some of these.
Yeah, just because I'm crazy doesn't mean it was because I took methylene blue today. That may have happened way before. But I want to just make sure that everybody knows that me having taken methylene blue this morning does not condone it. Does not mean saying that everybody should do this, to think that it is safe for all people all the time. And in fact, honestly, I think if you are metabolically healthy and you have healthy mitochondria, it isn't something that you should be even thinking about. And what's interesting is listening to those doctors talk about taking it in times when you have increased stress. And I really did, want to make sure that I had some experience with it personally, because I always like to speak from a place of experience. And in very, very, very small doses, it will still make everything blue in you. The smallest. I'm talking, I did one tiny little piece this morning. That would be about 1 milligram, right? When they're doing the research, when they're using it for antimicrobial aspects of it, they're doing 75, 150.
Wow.
Really high amounts. But I do want to share really quickly, if you do, I just want to make sure everybody knows that there is caution, right? This is not something that does not have some safety and hazard information on it. So you do want to be very cautious when you are thinking about doing this. Number one, making sure that it is from a very good source, not from the fish tank, as you said. But
Hmm.
from my perspective, I want to jump straight in and say if you are taking an antidepressant, I would stay away from it, right? Because it has been known to cause what's called serotonin symptoms, or there's a term for it.
Storm,
Yeah,
serotonin
syndrome,
storm,
serotonin syndrome.
syndrome.
Thank you. And that's true because it actually is. It does have what is known to be an inhibition of these enzymes that help to break down serotonin, but also dopamine and norepinephrine. So I always caution people about things that are going to drive your neurotransmitters too high because that is really really bad. I mean, people only think that everybody has low neurotransmitters and we need to bring them higher, but this is something that could potentially make them go too high. So I definitely want to caution anybody before taking any of it to know that that is a potential piece to this.
And that's a great piece to open with too, that because the person with high serotonin is likely going to be watching this because they're going to be the research junkie, right? That they're the person with OCD or obsessive compulsive disease is
Mm.
often what some of the primary symptoms of high serotonin would be is like, bah, I got to find the answer to this. What's methylene blue? What's the latest and greatest? They're going to be looking for podcasts like this Truth or Trend podcast, trying to find solutions for the craziness that's going on in their head. So, I mean, I talk about this on several of our podcasts, but Lyme is a very common trigger for that, where it compromises the sulfation pathway, so they don't break down serotonin properly, get stuck in that serotonin storm or serotonin syndrome, where they're obsessing about things. Physically, it can manifest as a frontal headache because the high cortisol that goes along with that. So look at the Headache Advantage book.
There you go.
We're unsponsored, by the way. So that's another sign. I mean, with the high serotonin and the low norepinephrine that would go along with chronic stress, that sets up that frontal headache. Just to kind of dovetail on what you mentioned there, I mean, serotonin storm's a huge thing, and you and I are dealing with yuppies or go-getters, that are really commonly affected by this thing because of the chronic stress and the way the body's handling serotonin, which then compromises digestion. Because serotonin, think of mood. How do you eat when you're depressed? And all that sort of stuff. It affects the way things go through the digestive system. So let's kind of go back to the mitochondrial aspect
Right.
from the clinicians, because that's where a lot of this dovetails off of mitochondria. So I know that we have a fair amount of doctors and muscle testers that work or watch these videos. So to also follow up on what Dustin said, with my muscle testing, we can determine if it's going to be detrimental for you and if you have a clean source. So,
Mm.
I mean, if you're a patient of ours or patient of a qualified good muscle tester, have them test you on if you have it, or you're considering or questioning it. There's ways to muscle test and decide whether it's good for the mitochondria, which I'm about to show you, or if there's toxins. And if you've got a fish tank version of it that's not clean, then that's not going to test well, and that's going to show detrimental for the mitochondria, for example. So there's a mitochondrial reflex. I use this because I'm trying to get my camera to go low enough, but it's
Grow
not. It's
taller,
a
grow taller.
right. Well, it's
It's
an
about the
AI
heart,
camera, so
right?
it's yeah. So it's an AI camera, so it stays focused on my face. But yeah, it's right over, basically a knife edge over the heart. If you're a muscle tester, we do a knife edge over the heart and determine how, because heart, brain, and now testicles are the three primary areas that of mitochondrial function. So moving my
You could
standing
put that
desk
knife
here
edge over the testicles to test for it if you needed to. And
nicely, though.
maybe don't go back to that muscle tester, is what I'm saying. That's
Right.
that's how they need to test it for you.
So, I mean, for testicles, I would use and just like for ovaries or uterus, I would use the associated muscles in those cases, which are glute medius for testicles or ovaries, or adductor for prostate or uterus. So I would use those muscles, so I'm not touching insensitive areas. Just FYI for you muscle testers. So that we use that knife edge over over the heart to determine if mitochondria are compromised. Then, which really fits into the whole methylene blue discussion, right? If the mitochondria are compromised, that's like wartime metabolism, where the body's gone into existing, and just trying to fight the microbe, trying to fight the bacteria, the parasite, or the virus. That's why, like when you have a virus, you need to chill out and take a break, because your mitochondria, the powerhouse, the energy cells of your body are not making, they're not producing energy. So they're going into wartime metabolism. So it's like, hey, time to back down. The hypothalamus gets inhibited. Go ahead.
We just threw a bunch of 50-cent words there in a row. And I just want to
Oh,
make sure we
sorry.
come back for
Got
those of you
excited.
who don't know what a mitochondria is,
Good point.
back to your chemistry in high school, it's the powerhouse of the cell, right? It's the battery of the cell.
Right.
And mitochondrial health is really important for your energy, your ability to produce energy.
It's
And one of the
everything.
main things that is touted about methylene blue is that it does help increase in ATP production in the mitochondria, right? And ATP is our currency of energy, right? So every time we're trying to get more energy, we're using up more ATP. But I just want to really quickly remind everybody that you can't produce ATP without adenosine, which is a protein, and phosphorus. TP is triphosphorus. So you can't just go in and stimulate and make the mitochondria make ATP out of thin air, right? So that's another caution if people are thinking, oh, I'm just going to go in and blast it with methylene blue. I looked at the chemical structure of methylene blue. There's zero phosphorus in it. Okay. So there's no way that it's giving you the actual building blocks that you need to be able to create what you're trying to stimulate it to create. So that always wants me to go back to ensure that you have all the appropriate natural chemistry in the body before you try to stimulate something to create more of what you're trying to make.
Right.
Right.
100%. Right.
Yeah.
And so that ATP is triphos, there's three phosphorus, right?
Right.
And then when it goes ADP, diphos, there's two phosphorus. And so that is how we make energy, much
Right.
like I mean, that's another subject, but T3 and T4, it's the same thing with the thyroid, where we need to convert from a tyrosine with 4 iodine to a tyrosine with 3 iodine to make energy. Similar process, they're very closely related. So, but to basically substantiate your point that we need the building blocks to do this. So trying to take a Band-Aid, fish tank product
Yeah.
to
Not going to do it.
to correct it if you don't have the phosphorus, which comes from diet, from foods, right, or from fast food if you're using a supplement, or things like that. But have the building blocks.
And to your point, what you were saying earlier about viruses and bacteria inhibiting optimal mitochondrial function, right? One of the reasons that the methylene blue may be helping with that is taking stress off by being an antimicrobial, right? So here's some research showing that it has a strong antimicrobial effect against commonly encountered bacterial strains. Another research study showing how it has potent antiviral activity. So there is something in there that's worth examining and understanding. But remember, just because it's helping the mitochondria doesn't mean it's necessarily nourishing or building up the mitochondria. It could be taking away something that could be breaking down that mitochondria superficially, right? Or too much supernaturally is what I mean to say, right?
Yeah. And it's not the only show in town. So we
Exactly.
certainly need to there are thousands, if not millions, of ways to do these proclaimed benefits. So you and I have been talking through the weekend about, spirulina as a possibility, chlorella, to help. Chlorella is a great binder and has that chlorophyll in there to help feed and bring oxygen. Chlorophyll, which, what do you think? What do you know? Comes from vegetables? How could that be good for us? So those
Right.
green leafies, right? There's benefits, the iron, high iron foods. That's going to help your body, carry oxygen, help your blood carry oxygen, that hemoglobin that we were talking about earlier. And I'm a big fan of iron-based supplements because I'm stamina. I'm an aerobic athlete. I want my body carrying oxygen to help me ride up into the hills, and be able
Right.
to not get hypoxic or, altitude sickness, for example, or, have the oxygen carrying capacity to keep riding my bike all day long, that kind of thing, or treating patients all day long, much.
Well, and that's something that Dr. Scott Sherr talked a lot about, the gentleman who created the transcriptions, is he works with these elite athletes and he's trying to maintain higher levels of that. But I think he's skipping steps by giving them methylene blue, right? You and I know that there are nutritional components that are probably missing from those elite athletes' diet that are making them have such a dramatic compensatory response, right? They're compensating for missing something if they're having that great of an increase in their ability to perform by taking methylene blue.
Right, right. And so muscle testers test it against the mitochondrial reflex, for example. If the mitochondria are compromised and methylene blue, is beneficial, then that mitochondrial reflex would no longer show weak or compromised. That would be a good thing. Conversely, if they put that methylene blue in the right hand and they get weak, either it's a bad source or they're deficient of things like phosphorus to make use of it, right? Or we could compare and contrast and see if, if chlorella or spirulina or vegetables, God forbid,
Yeah.
actually works, or beets actually work better than this methylene blue. So there's ways, within muscle testing to compare and contrast these nutrients as well to determine what's going to be best for you as an individual, you, the health pursuer that is listening to this. Mhm.
To your point, what we talked about earlier is I just want to share this. One of the active components that they say would be comparable to it is something called phycocyanin. And this does talk about the mitochondrial dysfunction, right? That's what we're talking about. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
and if we're looking at other aspects of it, it can be protective against oxidative mediated oxidative stress. That's another thing that could be taking away from the health of the mitochondria, right? And this leads into, like you were saying, our last discussion, right, on the buildup of oxalates.
Which
Uh,
is the kidney truth or trend
right.
podcast we did, right? Mhm.
And so when we're looking at, what are some natural food sources, like you just said, it could be spirulina, which would also be a great source of chlorophyll, right? Or
Mhm.
red algae. And again, there it's always a better way to get things in nature, I think. We just need
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
understand where we can get them instead of having
Right.
something so potent that you walk around with a blue tongue.
Right, right. Well, and I mean, we brought it up, but spirulina is the other one that's said to be the latest and greatest in nutrition, complete protein, all that sort of, vegetable source of protein. But I find it to be too stimulating for people often as well. Yes, some people do well with it, but again, muscle testers tested against the adrenals, or adrenal related, muscles, the sartorius muscle that supports the inside of the knee, supports the low back, the soleus and gastrocnemius muscle, posterior tibialis, all those muscles of the shin, lower leg are all adrenal related. So if there's compromises there, there's going to be tenderness, weakness. So if something like spirulina is too stimulating, these are areas where it might show up or manifest. As actually, none of us need more stress in our lives, right?
Right.
So so some people do okay with spirulina, but a lot of them it's actually too stimulating for, and that's why that blue-green algae, very similar product, blue-green algae that was really popular in the 90s,
Yep.
rose up to the top like, it was like the latest and greatest thing, and people were making millions off of it. But then it crashed and burned because a lot of people burned out and got sick and ill from ODing on it.
And I
Similar
think
manifestation.
exactly, which is what my biggest concern is with this methylene blue, is somebody's going to
Right,
take it, they're going to feel great, and they're going to think they need to take it every day, right? And they should keep
right.
taking it or higher and higher doses to be able to get that stimulatory effect. And that is absolutely one of the main reasons that we're doing this video is to tell people absolutely not. I
Right.
did enough to feel confident that taking 1 milligram is not going to do any harm to me, right? The most common thing I heard was that the poison's in the dose, which is true. But you got to remember that that dose can build up over time as well, right? Even if you're doing a small amount every day. And even these experts, all of these experts who are selling it, right? So they're investing some ignorance into, or some intelligence into ignorance about the dangers of it because they're a little bit compromised there. Will all say, yeah, maybe once or twice a week, or if you're going on an international flight, or if you're doing something that's going to be going from sea level up to 8,000 feet in a day, right? Those are the times that they're saying that you should probably think about employing that. So be very careful if you're going to be doing it,
Mhm. Mhm.
for
Mhm.
sure, and making sure that
Right,
it's a very small amount if you can.
right, right. And so, Dustin and I's perspective on this sort of thing, look at why, and we kind of alluded to it in the beginning. What benefit are you looking for with this? And look a little deeper as
Right.
a, high serotonin OCD kind of person, probably.
Mhm.
If you're watching this,
Mhm.
is it neurotransmitters that you're trying to stabilize? Is it brain chemistry you're trying to stabilize? Look at which neurotransmitter or what your symptoms are, and look at ways to correct that naturally, right? Help your liver break down serotonin properly, or take the magnesium to help the serotonin convert to melatonin so you can sleep properly. These types of things to get to the true cause instead of taking a Band-Aid type of supplement or herb that has some speculation or some questions, some red flags about it potentially. If you've got a virus, if you're chronically sick, you're trying to figure out look at why is your immune system compromised, right? A big boom for me in treating illnesses, really, cold flu type stuff, is when I shifted from trying to treat viruses and bacteria to where is the weakness in the body that's allowing that to flourish, right? So
The
what is
pathogen
it?
is nothing, right? The
Right.
terrain is everything.
Right. The pathogen's the opportunist, right? And strengthening the
Right.
terrain is the way to go. And so is it a lung weakness that the virus is capitalized on? Is it a intestinal, dysbiosis, a gut bacteria that's compromised that needs to be strengthened? Are you eating something that's, dairy or sugar or something that's compromising the immune system? So these things can fairly easily be deciphered so that you can get the benefit that you're looking for with a with a fad, a trend like this. So use your wisdom, your zeal for knowledge, and keep pulling back the veil and looking deeper and deeper. As we go through like antimicrobial effects, we look at mitochondria building up energy production. These are all valid considerations. These are your body speaking to you. Learn from what it's trying to tell you, but keep looking for the true cause and not the band-aid solution.
So, because I know through years and years of experience, I can tell somebody about all the dangers of something, but they could listen to Gary Brecka for 30 seconds or two other, influencers online, and they're going to go try it no matter what.
Right,
So, for
right.
those of you who are going to try it no matter what, please
Mhm,
start low and slow, right?
mhm,
Number one,
mhm,
make sure it's a very small amount. And number two, make sure it's not the fish tank version, right? For sure.
mhm.
But number three, use that information. If you feel a massive change in yourself in that, learn from that there was something going on in your mitochondria that you're compensating for now with it. And what can we do to help heal that? What are some ways that we can do that? So, Dr. V, Summer, what are some of the things that you do to help bring life back to the mitochondria? Now, I mentioned phosphorus, right? Let's not forget phosphorus is a very important mineral that we need to get a lot of. And we don't want to just stimulate until the mitochondria make more ATP if they don't have the building blocks to make more ATP. So what
Right.
are some other things that you can think of that would
Well,
help?
just to follow up on, if you feel great when you take it, but you're phosphorus deficient, you're going to feel great for a short period and crash and burn.
Right, right.
Right. So use that as a lesson. That's your body. That's another sign that, that your body is trying to tell you something. So physical aches and pains, every ache and pain, every muscle has an associated gland or organ with it. So anywhere you feel an ache or pain, anything that's new, and especially if you're going to experiment with this, keep a log, keep a journal, like, ooh, I've got new knee pain. Okay. It's probably too stimulating for you. I have, low back, my back starts aching when I'm sitting. Oh, that started about the time that we started with this methylene blue. Okay, maybe it's too stimulating for me, right?
Mhm.
So look at how these things manifest. Neck pain is going to be a sign of yeast overgrowth. That's another place where I've seen methylene blue promoted as a, antifungal, anti-yeast type of a supplement. So if you have shifts in mitochondria that are actually more, I call it yeastogenic. I think I'm making up my own word there. But more, cause yeast to proliferate, that's going to cause a one-sided neck pain where you feel like, I just need the chiropractor today. That's a sign that there's, yeast overgrowth, typically from sugar handling issues. So look at that. So mitochondria, again, the brain and the heart are very mitochondrial dependent. The brain uses 20% of the oxygen of the body, and it's, a tenth of the volume of the body, not even a tenth. So it's very mitochondrial dense. So brain fog is going to be a sign that, hey, there's something that we need help with. And who wants brain fog, right? But brain fog can be, is it toxins? Is it the stress causing a leaky gut consideration where, they've just got toxins floating around and inflammation? Is it a virus that's putting the body into the mitochondria again into wartime metabolism where it's just trying to exist instead of flourish? I'd rather thrive than exist, right? And so these are all signs that the body's trying to tell us something. But again, if you're going to dabble with this sort of thing, I would say journal, pay attention to any new aches or pains or headaches or things like that that your body is telling you that hey, this may not be the holy grail for you.
Right. And with any of these, because this is going to be in those category of what they call people who are biohacking, right? It's a new biohacking thing that we got to look at long-term safety protocols on these, and definitely be very aware that, anything that is outside of nature that is concentrated in a high amount is going to have that. It's going to do something in your body that is an unnatural thing, and your body has to balance out for that. So if you don't have anything to balance it out, yeah, you got to pay attention to see what's happening for sure. Yeah.
100%. Eat organic, keep your macros, your protein, your fat, balanced. All these things that we talk about, it's all related. And it just depends on where your body's crashing and burning, and I make mistakes,
Yeah.
and I've been a fitness and health fanatic for a long time.
A couple of years now.
So yeah, it's learn from what I mean. That's my niche, is to learn from what your body's really trying to tell you, because
Right.
everything is a warning light on the dash. It's your body saying, "Hey, if it's energy, right? Energy is hallmark for. I mean, fatigue is the most common reason people seek doctors, seek help. It's far and away the most common symptom, that is used as a secondary diagnosis and that sort of stuff. But it's a garbage can kind of like fibromyalgia is. It's a bit of a garbage can diagnosis because there's so many potential triggers for fatigue, right? Is it toxin overload? There could be some benefit to methylene blue to help release some of the toxins, but there's
Right.
benefits to chlorella that would do the same thing. There's benefits
Right.
to eating vegetables. Who would have known? There's benefits to eating vegetables that are going to help drive the detox pathways in the liver. Most of the liver pathways are, call it vegetable, the nutrients in vegetables dependent. So, keep your diet balanced, keep it healthy and, organic as best you can. That will reduce your desire and need for trends like
Right.
this.
Well, and that was interesting. That was one of the comments that the doctors made. They say, well, if you're metabolically healthy, if you're mitochondrial healthy, then you don't need it. But then they said, well, but 95% of the population is not metabolically healthy, right? So they will have a response to it, but it's not the answer, I guess is what we're trying to say, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
may be helpful for people in the short term. And if you do and you find that is, don't let that be the end of it. Don't let that be the answer for you.
Hmm, hmm.
Digging deeper and find out what you can do to heal why you had such a great response to the
Yeah,
methylene.
yeah. Let's call it a sign, not an answer.
Yeah.
Okay. We got benefit from methylene blue. Why? Okay. Where was the benefit? Let's duplicate that and see what we need to change in the diet,
Right.
or change in the exposure, that sort of thing.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Cool. Any last thoughts on this before we say goodbye for this week?
So there's a little bit of truth, but I would think that there's a lot of trend in this one.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, maybe in a very short term acute situation, it might be the thing that helps people get back on their feet and feeling well. But, similarly, we've talked about this before, drugs will do that. And that's what this is. It was a drug.
Mhm,
But now
mhm.
because it's just a dye, it's legal for people to take, this as much as they want from all these different people. So just be
Originally, it was a drug for malaria, right? Just
it
to
was a yep
for
originally
malaria.
for antimicrobial purposes for sure, and actually
Mhm,
currently it is in hospitals. They keep it there to help with acute carbon monoxide poisoning, right?
mhm,
So there is
mhm.
some value in an acute situation with
Right.
this. If you have been doing all the bad things and eating donuts and depleting your mitochondria, it might
Right.
be a short-term rescue, but it's going to be a very short-term rescue if you don't bring in all the nutrients that are going to help feed and nourish the body back to true
Right.
health, for sure.
Don't stop asking why. So if
There
you
you
got
go.
benefit, why did you get benefit, right?
Excellent. Love it.
Mhm.
Well, everybody, thank you so much. We really appreciate the
Thank
questions.
you.
It's very
Mhm.
interesting because in the last week, I've had several people come up to me through several different platforms saying, "Can you talk about methylene blue? Can you talk about methylene blue?" Let us know if we answered what you wanted to know about it in the comments below. If we didn't answer what you were hoping to know, ask us the question and we will clarify for that for sure. We've got some very interesting episodes coming up. We've got some great new guests coming in. Next
Mhm.
week, we've
Mhm.
got a guest talking about a new constellation of blood work that may be the
Oh
most
yeah.
important
Mhm.
blood work to find out your risk for cardiovascular failure, which is the number one killer. So next week's episode is going to be a powerful episode. And we really look forward to hearing your feedback and letting us know how this is improving your lives, the lives of your patients, your friends, your family, because that's what we're here to do. So
We are.